Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we rewatched The Curse of Peladon. What happened on that one?
Well, I can't remember if they were sent by the Time Lords or if the Doctor actually got the TARDIS semi-working, but the Doctor and Jo went to this planet called Peladon, where basically they're being asked to join a galactic federation, but the whole thing was kind of, religion versus science and nationalism versus globalism, and there was a monster who seemed to be lulled to sleep by the Venusian lullaby that sounded strangely like a Christmas carol, and of course we had the intergalactic pickle and the forerunner of Davros, all of these costumes that were all, and the Ice Warriors were back. But they had changed because now they were not warriors; they were more like ambassadors or whatever. Interesting episode overall. We had seen it before. Now that we saw it in context with the rest of the Third Doctor, it made way more sense.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing was that the King Peladon was played by Patrick Troughton's son, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Second time around, it was very, very interesting. I mean, it's very interesting to get these now more in context, but we also, last week, watched a modern episode.
Yes.
Which was Demons of the Punjab. So, I guess we could go ahead and recap that here.
The Doctor and her companions went back to 1947, the partition of India and Pakistan. And one of the companions found out that the story that her grandma had always told her was not exactly what they thought it was. And on top of everything else, again, there were some aliens. And again, I mean, you've told me that there's a lot of aliens, even in the historicals. It was an interesting thing. They thought that the aliens were killing people, but in fact they were basically like soldiers at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. They were there to celebrate people who had died alone, which was an interesting concept. But again, basically it showed that there are people who, despite the fact that their families had lived together for not just years but decades, when it came down to this is our land and that is your land, they were willing to kill each other over it. So
yeah, definitely. I think of all the modern episodes or modern historical episodes, I think that's the closest you can get to no alien interference, basically, because technically, I mean, they didn't really have any part in the story. It's just that time was basically playing out as it should have. However, in the background there were these aliens, and there was also the Doctor and her companions and everything that were also there.
And I kind of enjoyed her. I mean, she was again, in my opinion, very much like Eccleston, in that she's got a very working class accent, very involved, very enthusiastic. Now, again, I enjoyed 12th Doctor, Capaldi, because he's, again, more like the original William Hartnell types, the very scholarly sort of thing. But I really do kind of enjoy it. I'm really, I just mentioned this morning to you, I think I'd like to go back and see the restart of the whole thing where Eccleston shows up for the first time, just because I want to see how this progressed between Eccleston to Tennant to Smith to Capaldi and now to Whittaker. So I don't know, we can do that at some point.
Yeah, at some point, either we'll get there through the classics, although that does take a while, or who knows, we could just start up and just go through. I mean, because at first I was thinking, well, we go through the classics, and then as we watch through the modern era, we'll have all that sort of context. But it's not that needed, and I think we'll have enough context. Like, I don't think they're going to be referencing so specific stories, but we'll just have general context just from what we've already seen. And, I mean, to be fair, I've watched 13 seasons of modern Doctor Who, and I didn't really need any of that, so... The only other thing I realized that we didn't talk about, and it's a minor thing we didn't talk about in that episode, was the 13th Doctor's sonic screwdriver. Which I actually found out this morning the battery died.
Oh, dear.
So that's unfortunate, but there. Why don't you have a look at that real quick?
Yeah, that appears to be something out of the film Alien.
Yeah. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't really remember what she did with it.
she used it occasionally for scanning, but she didn't. It wasn't that prominent. So, but the difference being on this one, whereas these two down here were given to the Doctor by the TARDIS, she specifically made this one herself when she was on her own, and used alien technology and a lot of spoons in order to make this. So, anywho, today we are moving on to the Sea Devils. And I didn't know what we were on to today, so I looked at the schedule last second to make sure. But this is a 6-part episode, so we'll be watching 3 today, 3 next week, and then also after the next episode will be our Christmas break.
Oh.
So luckily that all sort of evens out. We're not stopping in the middle of a story. But yeah, we have the Sea Devils. And like you mentioned last episode, I think they said that it was the Time Lords that allowed them to go to Peladon. I'm not entirely sure why they did that, but for some reason the Time Lords allowed the Doctor to go there. So I don't know if we're going to be getting more of that in this episode.
Oh, and when the TARDIS landed, it was on a cliff, and after the Doctor and Jo got out, it fell down the cliff.
Yeah.
But that's when they kind of set up the fact that it's indestructible.
Yeah. Because I think they may have done that one other time where I think it might have been in the Romans where they kind of landed somewhere unstable and fell off, but I don't remember.
But that does sound vaguely familiar.
Yeah, so but yeah, I don't know. Anywho,
now this probably has nothing to do with where we're going, although I would love to see it. And again, I may be wrong, but I seem to recall that like Francis Drake and his privateers, pirates, whatever we want to call them, were known as the Sea Devils. But again, don't know for sure. That would be kind of fun, though, to have the Doctor go back and, land in the middle of the Spanish Armada, the battle for the Spanish Armada. That would, there are so many wonderful places in Earth's history that they could go back, and it doesn't have to be the modern stuff. It's great that they to do a World War II or World War I or Civil War, but I mean, let's really go back. Let's go back to the Greeks and the Romans again. Go back to Mesopotamia. I mean, what would it be like to have the Doctor and the companions meet Hammurabi or Sargon, or somebody from the truly ancient world, and try to understand how that entire philosophy that shaped our modern world came about.
Yeah. Now I don't remember. I mean, it's been a long time since we've had a historical episode. Like, maybe you could kind of count the War Games, because even though that takes historical things and puts it into the future, but I don't remember. It might have actually been like the Evil of the Daleks was sort of the last one we had, where they go back to Victorian times. But other than that, I mean, I know the last pure historical was the Highlanders. And I think people have said there might be another, like one last pure historical in like the 5th Doctor's era, but I don't remember. But I mean, at the very least, this Doctor, the 3rd Doctor, has not had any sort of a historical episode.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see that, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, it would also be interesting to take sort of the unit crew into the TARDIS, but I don't think that's going to happen. So, like, I don't know. I just think it'd be fun, like, having the Brigadier, like, go back in time.
Yeah.
Like, that could be kind of interesting. So,
But, for example, put the Brigadier in at the Battle of New Orleans, where I thought it was Lord Pakenham brought in the Caribbean fleet. They were going to attack New Orleans, but Andrew Jackson was there. And that way, so it's the Brigadier who can say to the Americans, of all people, here's what you're going to have to do to defend against the British, because I'm assuming that the Brigadier has some background in British military history.
Yeah.
And he would be able to say, here's what they're going to do, and here's how you can defend against them. And that's why the Americans won that incredibly surprising victory at the Battle of New Orleans.
Yeah, maybe. So, though it's entirely possible that Sea Devils are just like the creature from the Black Lagoon or something, like something weird.
Let's hope they're not sentient seaweed.
Yeah, we don't have good track records. Actually, we don't really have good track records with anything from the sea in this show. And I know that's only like twice between Fury from the Deep and the seaweed and the Underwater Menace, but if you had a nickel, I don't know, for every time. Anywho, Well, we might as well go ahead and find out as we jump into the Sea Devils. Here we go.
Meat locker cold in the room again today.
Yep. You like a blanket?
I may have to put that over my legs because it's really cold in here this morning.
Really not.
We're abandoning ship. We're abandoning ship. Our position is...
That's a creature from the Black Lagoon.
There you are, Joe. It's the Master's permanent residence from now on.
Oh, hey.
Let's hope he's still there.
Are we gonna go see the Master?
Why would they have a car with all the doors and the trunk, the boot taken off?
Yeah.
Well, you'll be wanting to see the prisoner.
That was the general idea.
He's an interesting chap, you
We
know.
didn't come here for our health.
He's putting on weight.
Poor chap. Can't get the exercise.
You will obey me.
You'll let us know when you finish with the book, sir.
Oh, that's embarrassing. Unless this is his plan.
Certainly. This way.
Walk this way. If I could walk that way, I wouldn't need the top.
After you, Maria.
Used to be the governor of a colony once, so he tells me.
Very small colony, isn't it? In fact, I believe they claimed independence soon after he arrived.
He seems to be looking after you very well.
Oh, yes, I've got everything I want. Except, of course, my freedom.
That's
Consider yourself.
generally how a prison works.
I wish that something like this had happened a long time ago.
Surely you don't like being locked up.
No, but it's given me a chance to reconsider my life.
Am I to take it that you're a changed man?
Is that so very incredible?
It's been like a month.
After all, I do have a great deal of which to repent.
And you just tried to
In that case, perhaps
hypnotize the guard.
whereabouts of your
Yeah.
travels.
It was a very strange visit.
There we are then. Fooled them nicely, didn't we?
I hope so.
What about that hypnotism wheeze, eh?
Do you think I could have another television set? For the bedroom?
Yes. Yes, I'm sure that's possible.
Colour, of course.
Of course. Well, if you'll excuse me.
That's true.
I like how he's just completely taken over.
My bad leg's playing me up a bit. The Crimea, you know.
Crimea?
Gallipoli? El Alamein? Does it really matter?
Crimea's 1800s, Gallipoli is World War One.
Well,
El Alamein's World War Two.
There, he's making straight for the lifeboat.
this is kind of reminding me of Fury from the Deep.
I'll bring it back just as soon as I find the doctor.
Oh. I don't know why for a second I thought she was going to fly there. And off she goes.
And we don't suspect that's really Joe.
Eh.
What on earth?
It's the latest episode of Alf. Clearly.
What are you watching?
It seems to be a rather interesting extraterrestrial life form.
Only puppets, you know. For children.
Oh,
Probably a BBC program.
Nah.
Well, here's the chart you wanted.
God.
I see a lot of those in like Life on Mars because it takes place in the 70s.
Yeah.
Not abandoned anymore, old chap.
Really?
Hart, people are going to use it as a sonar testing station. Contractors are working on the place now.
Oh, maybe the Master isn't the cause of the conflict of the plot.
What are these markers here?
Those are the last known position of the missing vessel, so far as we can estimate.
You can't lose anything at
Right,
draft.
so it's a sonar installation. Sonar is sound waves underwater, probably dredging up these sea devils.
If Horatio Nelson had been in charge of this operation, I hardly think that he would have waited for official instructions.
Yes. A pretty impulsive fellow, if one can believe the history books.
History books. Captain Hart, Horatio Nelson was a personal friend.
1805.
Good grief. Poor chap's as mad as a hatter.
Again, that seems a little chunky for Joe. Probably a stunt woman. Or man.
Doctor, let's get out of here, please.
All right, let's find that radio first.
Shh, listen.
Alrighty. Well, another episode without anything from Unit, really, which is interesting. Okay, well, that's the first part of the Sea Devils. I do like this idea that the Master is just sort of also stumbling in, like, oh, well, this just happens to be near him, so I like that. It also reminds me of a couple things with the Master. They'll do this sort of later on where the Master is sort of imprisoned somewhere, and the 12th Doctor goes and talks to, well, her at the time. And that sort of back and forth is interesting, although here, obviously, the Master is in more control because he's completely taken over. But it also reminds me of the end of Sherlock, where, spoilers if you haven't seen Sherlock, but at the end where Sherlock's sister is there and has taken over that prison. So that's pretty interesting. I like that.
Yeah. Now, again, to me so far, the best thing about these Sea Devils is they're taking that Hitchcock approach that we talked about. How you saw like a partial glimpse of the face. We've seen a couple of hands here and there, so that allows us to kind of imagine the rest of the creature and get scared all on our own without having to see. Oh, well, that's obviously a plastic suit that some guy is in.
Yeah. Now, if these guys are here because of drilling, then this is going to be a little too similar.
Well,
but I don't think they're drilling, are they?
Because they said it was a sonar station.
Yeah.
Which means that, again, they're using the underwater radio beams, or whatever you want to call them, to detect things under the ocean, and it's obviously something that the Sea Devils don't want to happen, and that's why they've sunk the ships and are now trying to scare off the people there on the island.
Yeah, so, I mean, at least the immediate plus on these guys is that they are creatures. They aren't just seaweed that can possess people or goo that can possess people.
Oh, you had to say goo, didn't you?
I kind of had to, I mean, I don't want to bring up the argument again, and good God, nobody try to argue that again. But, I mean, at the very least, like, immediately, like, okay, I kind of understand, like, this is a creature. Like, okay, that's a concept we can understand.
I'm wondering, this is just for me, can we go through the credits here and see if they credit a stunt double for Joe?
Nope. Oh, hey, the Royal Navy helped in making this.
Now, that's something right there. The BBC wish to acknowledge, because the BBC means British Broadcasting Corporation, and it makes me wonder, as a teacher, shouldn't that be the BBC wishes to acknowledge the help given to them by the Royal Navy in the making of this program? Double M and an E on the end.
Yeah,
that's just wonderful British spelling.
I mean, okay, we're going to say something positive about British spelling and pronunciations and everything, because they aren't French. And in doing so now, we are going to insult the French. But I took French for about a year in college. And good God, it can be so difficult. Like if I was to read that spelling of program in French, it would probably be like Prague. You just cut off the rest of it, basically. So So I want to give the British that credit.
Now, I can't remember, but I think we had a discussion about British spelling probably years ago. And I think one of our audience members said that in the United States, or in the colonies, in order to save money, they dropped out unnecessary letters, which is why they would have dropped the M-E off a program and dropped out the U out of like honor and color and things like that.
Right.
Because they were trying to save space and save money when they were printing things.
Yeah. So, I mean, that makes sense. It also, I mean, that just makes sense in general. It's like, if you don't need the letter, I mean, that's also sort of the whole thing with English of just the silent letter. It's like, well, if it's silent, why do we have it? What's the point of it if it's not doing it, if it's not pulling its own weight in this word, you know? So that does make sense. I also, you're talking about, the BBC Wish versus the BBC Wishes. I'm sitting here thinking the BBC wish to acknowledge. We wish to acknowledge, but we won't. So that's what I'm thinking about that. But
and we used to have a joke here at the house. It may have been with Jordan more than you, but there was a British program we watched many, many years ago, and one of the characters' names was spelled like CHOLMONDLAY. It looked like Cholmondeley, and in the actual show, it was pronounced Chumley. So anytime Jordan would see some long, fantastic word that he couldn't pronounce, he'd just look at it and go, oh, it's probably pronounced Chumley.
Maybe. So
there's a lot of echo in here.
Well.
Yeah. Interesting. Again, just barely seeing it in shadow there.
Well.
Don't be alarmed. I've no wish to harm you. Now wait for this talk.
You missed. Oh man. Look at these crazy angles. Here's Johnny.
Silurians, wasn't it? The Brigadier was telling me.
That's a complete misnomer. The chap who discovered them must have got the period wrong. Now, properly speaking, they should have been called the Eocene.
That was that race of super reptiles that had been in hibernation for billions of years, wasn't it?
That's right. If you want my opinion, there's another of their colony right here beneath us.
Something seems to... What have we done to them?
Well, they still think of Earth as their planet, Joe, and they want it back. As far as they're concerned, man is just an ape who got above himself. Yes. Well, though I say so myself, I think that's a remarkably efficient piece of work.
Or it was.
When do we leave? As soon as possible. How can
I immediately love that hat on him. It looks ridiculous.
You have some...
I am very fascinated by this car.
Seems kind of odd to me. This is like a naval station, and yet he's a colonel.
Well. Man, how do you hide in a car like that?
I don't think his hair and his beard are regulation.
No.
You have seen my past. I've got a phone to check.
When in doubt, just hit the guy.
Down here much longer, Doctor?
Entirely depends how long it takes me to conclude my business. Good day, Colonel.
Yes, of course, I mustn't hold you up. Goodbye, Miss Grant. It's been a great pleasure to see you again.
Goodbye, Colonel.
Well, I'll be pushing off then.
I'll see myself out.
I'll be in touch, George.
Well, he may be here now, but half an hour ago he was at the naval base.
Possible. Clear case of mistaken identity.
There's not a lot of people that look like
I'll go
him.
and check the guards myself.
Wow.
Like that, yes.
Why are these here?
I were you, that's government property.
This is one of the dumbest fights they've ever done.
You're a good doctor, but you're not good enough.
Oh, you haven't seen the quality of my footwork yet.
It helps that he's taller, too.
How many times have I told you? Violence will never get you anywhere.
Well, that was really stupid. that was a little too much. And the fact that whoever's doing the soundtrack today is going way too techno and weird, like, I don't know about that.
Well, again, we're so used now to stuff like that sword fight in Princess Bride and all that other stuff where it's that again for the 1960s and for such a cramped space that they were in, that's not too bad.
Yeah. Well, it just seems like such a strange thing. I mean, I guess just in the fact that you never really expect the Doctor or the Master to have any actual fight. So suddenly there are these swords in this prison, like... Now, the whole thing of, like, kicking the gun out of his hand, like, we've kind of had that before, too, where he kicked something out of his hand, so it's not even that. It's just the fact that it becomes this goofy sort of sword fight, you know? But, I don't know.
It didn't bother me as much as it does you.
Yeah.
And again, but that may be because I'm from this generation where that sort of thing was very, very common in not only in movies about the 1500s and 1600s and so forth, like the Three Musketeers, but up to and including you expect Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty, because in it's not the 7% Solution, it's the Steven Spielberg young Sherlock, where Moriarty has a Heidelberg scar. So it's just one of those things. When I did Gaslight, Angel Street, the second time I did it, the man playing Inspector Ruff was a fencing instructor, so I added in a sword fight in a play where there is no sword fight, but just because I could, So, anyway.
Okay, we don't have to watch the whole fight again, do we?
Apparently we do.
Apparently. He just missed.
I was defending myself. This man came here to kill me.
Be so good as to explain yourself, Doctor.
Only a complete fool would listen to such an accusation. I suppose in your case.
Don't speak to me like that.
And take care not to lose him this time, won't you?
He just immediately kicks that guard and leaves.
The point is, what are you going to do about it?
This whole thing's getting out of hand. I just...
Now there are two of them.
I've got to get back to the naval base. It's urgent.
Sorry, miss. Orders. Take it
Oh, good job, Joe.
Hypnotized.
Walks up and rips his mustache off.
The man we took off the fort was babbling something about sea devils.
Oh, don't you think this is getting a bit out of hand, sir?
Now there are two of them.
I'm well
He's
aware
got a
of that.
beard.
To be exact, 70 in the last 10 years.
How very kind of you. How very unkind of you.
Right, I'll leave.
Aye, sir. Stand by to blow Q.
It's so roomy in here.
Blow Q.
Oh, is that why there are no doors?
Maybe. Top security installation and a woman in a white pantsuit can't be spotted.
Nah. Alright. Joe has a plan. This should be interesting.
Put a brick in that handbag and use it as a weapon.
That'd be hilarious if she just casually carried a brick everywhere she went.
Again, top security installation has an open window.
Yeah. Granted, a window only she could fit through, but still. Alright, time for some of that escapology they talked about.
Nothing.
It's gone dead, sir. What the devil's going on?
What the sea devil's going on, actually.
It's a perfect replica of the communications device used by the enemy agents. But we are going to use it to lure them into a trap.
I only hope it works. If it doesn't, I'm for it, you know.
Oh, it'll work, don't you worry about that.
Don't want any reward, of course. Doing my duty.
Yes, of course. I'd better get back to my quarters.
So is he not even hypnotized?
Ever finished
Why
with
not?
him?
For the time. What's wrong now, sir?
These handcuffs, they're far too tight, actually.
I'm under strict instructions, sir, that you're to be kept on...
I can't believe that worked.
Interesting model work.
Well, I wonder if the normal soundtrack guy, like, left for this episode. So they were just like, alright, who can vaguely play a keyboard?
Oh, I bet that's cold.
Nah. Alright, and that's part 3.
So, the Master's plan is to allow the reptiles to take over the world just so they can exterminate the human race so that he can get back at the Doctor.
Yes. That is exactly a plan the Master would have, definitely. I mean, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but there's one episode with the Master with the 10th Doctor where he figures out a way to turn every human into a different version of himself.
I think you've mentioned that, yes.
Yeah, and it's the weirdest thing. So there's 7 billion of just him, and he says, oh well, the human race was always your favorite, Doctor, but now it's the Master race. It's not that great of a story when you get down to it, but yeah, it's exactly the kind of petty narcissistic thing the Master would do. So,
all right. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting story, but it's slow.
It's slow.
Some really contrived stuff. And again, although we haven't seen the end of it yet, again, why would Trenchard be doing this? I know he says, I'm just doing my duty. But how does he see the big picture? How does he not see that bringing up these differently evolved Silurians, I guess, or Eocenes, or whatever the Doctor called them, that this has no benefit whatsoever to him?
Well, does he know that that's what's happening too?
Yeah.
Because towards the end, where was that in there? Where I guess it was like here. Let me see. Hold on. No, it was a bit forward. I think he mentioned something about like enemy spies or something, right?
I don't remember.
We must head them off.
No. Let them get them.
You've got to catch them.
We shall. This device is now ready for testing. We shall use it to trap them all together.
I could have sworn there was something about it.
Keep it up, you know. The lies I've told. How long before that device of yours is ready?
Oh, just a few hours now.
What exactly is it?
It's a perfect replica of the communications device used by the enemy agents. We are going to use it to lure them into a trap.
I only hope it works. If it doesn't, I'm for it, you know.
Oh, it'll work, don't you worry about that. Just think of it, Tetra. You will be responsible for exposing some of the most dangerous saboteurs this country has ever known. I think you'll find that a grateful government will give you anything that you ask for.
Don't want any reward, of course. Doing my duty?
Yes, of course. I'd better get back to my quarters.
So, is
the Doctor and Joe the enemy saboteurs? I'm guessing there.
yeah, maybe like, I mean, I guess it's sort of maybe he's thinking of like spies and perhaps the Cold War, I guess, and the Master's thinking of Sea Devils.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it sort of works out to. So I'm curious how, next episode when Trenchard sees the Sea Devils, what he's going to be thinking about that. But I'm not sure because it seems like he's the one who's not hypnotized of them.
Yeah.
But it's just a very strange, like, why is he working with the Master?
Yeah.
But it's, definitely an interesting concept of the Master, is still making plans and everything from inside of prison, you know? So that's really interesting. I will say, though, one thing that's kind of losing me on this season, and I only really notice it now, is there is just a lack of unit in this. Now, Day of the Daleks, they were there. When they go to the future, they're not there, obviously, but they were pretty much there in that episode. Last episode, you sort of give it a pass because, well, it's spending all that time on Peladon, so nothing of unit in there. But this one, it's like, no, where's, Benton and Yates and the Brigadier? Like, they're just not a part of this. And honestly, I really like that, even though, thinking back on it, Season 8 kind of falls into its own formula of, the Master is doing something with some sort of strange alien, and, the Doctor and unit, they have to go and defeat it in whatever, crazy, narcissistic, or convoluted plan he has. But honestly, those 5 stories were kind of some of the best we've had, Yeah. It was a very consistent season, honestly. But this one, I don't know. There's just something about this one that's it's not quite clicking.
Yeah.
But the Doctor, Joe, and the Master himself, they're all still great. It's just the story around them I don't think is.
And the fact that the commander there had contacted unit, or the secretary had, and said that Joe and the Doctor had not shown up yet, that should alert the Brigadier or somebody else to send people down there immediately.
Right. So,
which they may still do. That may show up in part 4.
Right, but I don't know if I guess they were just like, well, we had that whole thing we were doing for that season, and now we're going to do different stuff, but nothing has really changed. The circumstances haven't changed to where it should be any different. Because even in season 7. We still had, the Doctor and unit doing stuff. It just, the Master wasn't there yet. So, yeah, it's just very strange. So let's see. So we have this sea fort in the middle of this. It's basically this British Bermuda Triangle, I guess. And we got a bunch of ships that are sinking because of the not Silurians. So,
or the semi-Silurians, or quasi-Silurians.
Yeah, Silurians that have evolved to live in water. Which, at the very least, okay, and yes, I know I'm walking on eggshells bringing up the old arguments again, but that's an explanation. I get that. Okay, they evolved from the Silurians. Okay, cool, I get that. Let's go.
Just as there are different kinds of humans, and we are supposedly related to the other primates. Again, yes, you're right. You understand that. I just realized, though, that in 3 episodes we've only seen one of them.
Yeah, and it's entirely possible that one at the end of this episode is the same one that was there. I know this is called the Sea Devils. So there's got to be more than one, but I'm almost wondering if they only made one costume and they're going to try to pass it off as multiple.
Yeah, and that guy who came out of the ocean there at the end, even if he had a wetsuit on, and even if that was in the middle of the summer, I bet that was really cold.
Yeah, so the costume itself is kind of odd. Like, the head is, pretty classic. Yeah, it's plasticky and everything, but it honestly looks pretty decent. The strange, like, webbing, like, bright blue clothes it's got on is kind of strange.
What that suggested to me was they were trying to kind of suggest scales, even though it was like a metal tunic or something.
Yeah, so...
Because I don't remember, did the Silurians have any kind of costume on, or were they just lizard bodies?
I think it was mainly just lizard bodies. So, yeah, maybe they are trying to make sure they differentiate these guys from the normal Silurians, so... I mean, see, I didn't write a ton of notes on this one because it was a little slow. Because honestly, the next thing is just the sword fight itself, which honestly, you're right. It's not that bad. It's just a little goofy, and it's just not something I would have expected.
Yeah. I suspect if they had had more time to choreograph it and rehearse it, it would have looked a lot better.
Yeah. And also just, I mean, there's also just the fact that we're watching this and neither of them can die,
Yeah.
Like, there's no way they just kill off the master. Obviously the doctor won't kill the master, so there's that. But obviously, like, unless this was some crazy way of regeneration, that would be interesting if just in the middle of the story, which I've always wanted. I've always wanted that, where just in the middle of a story, the doctor just regenerates.
Like the curse of fatal death.
Yeah, kind of like that. So,
now I will say I had anticipated at that end where the master takes out the knife and is going to throw him at him. Of course, we find out in the next episode that his throw is off because Trenchard interrupts him. But it would have been cool if he threw that, and the next thing you see in the next episode is the doctor standing there with the knife between his palms where he's caught it.
Yeah, that would have been cool. I was thinking that too. So, and it's also interesting. I mean, just the progression of that sword fight. Like, it starts out with a gun, and what we saw was him take the knife. But it starts off with the gun. Then the doctor kicks it out of his hand. For some reason, there's swords around. So
it is an old castle.
I suppose, but why would you keep that next to the prisoner's cell? I don't know, but then they get the swords, they have this kind of goofy fight, and then it ends up with him trying to throw the knife. So overall, it's not bad. I think also part of it is just the soundtrack. The soundtrack of this episode is very odd. So,
yeah.
Let's see. And then we had the doctor being a prisoner, which, I mean, again, it's just because, Trenchard is in on it and everything. I will say, though, like, look, I understand, it doesn't matter what authority he would actually have, but would he have that authority? As just, I guess, a warden, basically, of a prison with one prisoner, if he would have that authority, although I suppose he would kind of have that authority to arrest the doctor.
And I would be interested to know what regiment those guards are from, because although they don't speak with a Scottish accent, their uniform is, to me, somewhat reminiscent of what the Scottish forces would have been in the late 60s or early 70s.
Let's see. So the Master's plan is to contact the reptiles and hope they exterminate all the humans on Earth. Which, I mean, now see, it's a slight problem that we haven't had any sort of personality from these reptiles, which we had with the Silurians, where they were, they were talking, and there was, dissension among them of, one of them was like, oh, we just need to kill all the humans and stuff, but the leader was like, no, we should try to talk, we should sort this out peacefully and everything.
Yeah.
And then it all just, one thing leads to another. But this time, these Silurians just can't talk. So,
or at least they haven't so far.
Yeah, so...
Now, again, the one or two close-ups we've had on the face, they kind of look, again, like turtles. They've got that almost beak-like structure. And, we haven't yet seen one of them try to move that, so maybe we will in the next 3 episodes.
Yeah, maybe. So, of course, though, this is the Master trying to use some other alien or creature to try to make his plan work. That generally doesn't work, though. Between the Autons, the parasite in the Mind of Evil, What else was in season 8?
They all run together at this point.
Yeah, I'm really trying to
He's becoming
think.
the Wile E. Coyote of villains.
Yeah, honestly, like, I guess the more we go with it, the more it's like, all right, come on, man, you're not... This isn't working,
Yeah.
But yeah, so... I also like, though, he says at the beginning... Because that conversation at the beginning where, the doctor visits, and it all seems to be this sort of nice, happy conversation, and then, Trenchard comes in and is like, oh, well, that we've completely fooled him, and the Master's like, probably not. The doctor is very clever, so you got to be careful about that, So I did kind of like that. That honestly, it's like, yeah, they seem to be happy and stuff, but they're probably just keeping up appearances. They both know something. They're up to something. Well, Jo did something in this episode. She was able to rescue the doctor, which was good. And you're right. Going around in this on this island with a white jacket and pants, and nobody saw her. So
And see, that's the thing. As a director, I would have gone to the costume room and said, although she looks lovely in the white pantsuit, because she's going to be doing all of this surreptitious spy type work, we need to have her blend in a little bit more. So let's put her in a brown or maybe an olive green or something, so that when she's running around outside, she literally doesn't stand out like a beacon. Go, oh, there's the girl in white running around.
Yeah. So, though honestly, it is just nice to see that Jo's getting better a little bit, because I mean, in her first appearance, which was also the first appearance of the Master, she got hypnotized and nearly blew everyone up. So it's good that she has come a long way. She is getting better. Although it would still be hilarious if she just carried a brick with her. That's just her main choice of weapon.
Yeah.
So,
and I swear, at one point it may have been the second episode, she didn't have her purse. I was going to comment when I first saw her with a purse. I thought, seriously, why would she carry a purse if she's, And then for one scene she was without it, and the next scene she had it again. So I'm sure she, took it off and laid it down somewhere. But I'm not sure that was a continuity moment. But again, as a director, I would look at this and go, why would Jo carry her purse around with her?
Yeah. So,
unless, of course, she had a brick in it for smacking people over the head with.
Yeah. Which would be hilarious. So, and at the very least, she would be more useful than Benton. Yeah. So,
oh, that's just rude.
I mean, the poor guy. I feel bad because we've had him for so long, but he's really especially last season, he was really blowing it. So, let's see. You got anything else?
Is that it?
Kinda, yeah. Honestly, wow. So it's. Perhaps a little bit of a shorter discussion, but I mean, we are somewhat getting close to the 2-hour mark, so maybe it's not that bad. But I mean, even I was looking at, let me see, how long was the Curse of Peladon? Was it still blocked? Okay. Curse of Peladon was looks like an hour and 5. The Demon's reaction, the modern reaction, was 55 minutes. That's actually, I think, one of our longest modern reactions we've done, which is weird because I didn't think we actually talked all that long.
Yeah, I suspect in this one you're going to be cutting out a lot of it because we didn't say anything. We were just watching. Now,
granted, we said the same thing about Curse of Peladon, we weren't talking too much, and actually, I did have to cut it down. Afterwards, I had to cut it down even more to get it within the time limit. So I don't know. Maybe it's a standard length. Maybe it's not. I can never tell while we're actually doing it. So yeah.
But I got nothing.
Yeah. And okay, so sorry, I'm distracted a little bit. I should have posted the last episode of Doctor Who Series 13 by now. However, it's still blocked. I think the copyright system on YouTube has completely broken into pieces because it never works the way I expect it to. And what I expect it to do is still not good, but it's at least consistently awful.
Yeah.
Now it's inconsistently awful, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore. So, So yeah, anyone... I mean, this is weeks later by the time we were watching this video, but if anyone thought, oh, that episode was late, then that's why. It also is not going to help for me to try to announce the live stream, because, again, this is going to be weeks later when this goes up. Yeah. But by the time this goes up, I will have also done a live stream of the Doctor Who stuff, so... we never do that for Classic Who. Maybe we should do that sometime. So...
I've never done a live stream. We've answered questions from Twitter, but I've never done a live stream. So
yeah, I mean, it's basically everyone gets to complain in person. So,
oh boy,
yeah. Well, I say that jokingly. It's not really that bad. Some things I have worried about with live streams of like people just blindly hating Doctor Who, but we've actually been pretty solid so far.
Now, do you get to see them, or is it just live?
Yeah. It's just a live chat.
Live chat. Okay.
So everyone posts their stupid things. And honestly, if anyone goes back and watches or has seen my Doctor Who live streams, they get derailed very easily. So
maybe you should do a Zoom so we could actually see some of these people in person.
Oh, I'm not sure about that.
That's a Pandora's box.
Yeah, I think it is. So, anywho. We're saying all of this because we're trying to extend the time a little bit because we ran out of things to say about this episode. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, as well as another playlist of some other Doctor Who reactions we do on the channel. Haven't decided which one it'll be. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen.
Please.
As well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.